All right, in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Pushing the Limits, everybody. So glad you could join us. You know, the NBA is heating up. Of course, the NBA Finals, Golden State taking a 3-2 lead in what has been a fun series. And I always love talking to former NBA champions. And the guy we have with us on the line right now is no exception. He's the former #1 draft pick. He played in the NBA for 14 seasons, won a championship, and one of the best athletes to ever come out of Australia. Certainly, it is a pleasure and an honor to have Andrew Bogut on the line with us. Andrew, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
Going well. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you coming on with us, Andrew. So obviously I want to talk about the NBA Finals with you, talk about your career. But I got to talk about a topic, certainly a big topic in the WNBA and here locally. Liz Cambage played here for the Las Vegas Aces. A lot of controversy surrounding her. What did you make of this story that came out? Obviously, you knew about it, I'm assuming, before it came out with Team Nigeria. She was very critical of Team Australia. When you heard what some of these players on Team Nigeria said, the statements that she made, what went through your mind? What was your first reaction?
Not surprised. Not surprised, to say the least. I think, I kind of knew what was said when it happened, or at least within a week or two of it happening. I had some people that reached out to me confidentially and kind of let me know, and I was appalled at what I heard. What I was more appalled at was the federation and people trying to cover it up and make it like it wasn't a big deal. And then, obviously she played the mental health card, and that was the reason why she left the team, which couldn't be further from the truth. But despicable words, despicable actions, but at the same time, definitely not surprised.
So, Andrew, you had mentioned that what the public had heard was kind of like the PG-13 rating. And while I know it's difficult to talk about this stuff, some of the players on Team Nigeria said that she called them monkeys. She said, go back to, your third world country. If we have to bleep stuff out, we can bleep stuff out. But I think it's important for people to know. Can you share with us? It doesn't have to be PG-13. What do you know about what she said and what she did?
Oh, you've got it pretty spot on. It's been publicized over the last couple of weeks now. You hit those two words are probably worse than, or those phrases are worse than any swear word you can use, I think. So you've got it pretty spot on. By PG version, there's obviously some explicitives in there along with those wordings. But going back to your third world country, and country was used a bit more graphically than country. But look, it's just disappointing. You guys got to remember, this is somebody who is at the front of BLM rallies, who's all about social justice, who's all about discrimination and equality and all that kind of stuff. For her to utter those words is beyond hypocritical. And to be honest with you, I think not just me, but a lot of people now, when she jumps on a megaphone and parrots all these causes and social causes, I don't think people are going to give her the time of day anymore.
Andrew, I agree with you 150%. Not only this story, it doesn't surprise me. Her behavior is that of an 8-year-old. I've been around her. I don't understand why she behaves the way she does. I have to ask you this. Do you think she's used her mental illness as an excuse for some of the things she's done? Because I kind of get the sense that she does. And while I feel for anybody that suffers from mental illness, I feel like her in particular uses it kind of like to shove away her behavior. Is that how you feel?
Look, I think there is mental health issues there. But yeah, I totally agree with you. Having mental health issues does not give you the right to use those words. It does not give you the right to bully people and to condone bad actions. Like, if you make a mistake, you admit your mistake and you move on. But everyone goes through mental issues throughout their life. There's a lot of people that struggle just on the day to day. They might have dead end jobs. They might have got fired. They might have lost hours. COVID's really hurt families and people and their everyday lives. That doesn't give them an excuse to just go and act like an idiot. So I think it's used strategically by her at times, and I think that's the way in 2022. It's not just her. There's a lot of athletes and a lot of people that make horrendous mistakes. Instead of owning their mistakes and putting their hand up and saying, you know what, I made a mistake. I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to get better. It's always, oh, I've got a mental health issue. That's why I punched that person in the face, or I've got a mental health issue. That's why I abused that person racially. That's not good enough in my opinion.
Andrew, I would imagine you must take this personally, right? Because I mean, she attacked basically Team Australia and criticized Team Australia for not having enough minorities on the team. You remember when she made those statements, she was very critical of that. And do you feel like it really takes away? You mentioned it, being on the side of Black Lives Matter and all these other things. I've talked to a lot of people, especially people in the Black community here in Las Vegas, that say, listen, while her heart might be in the right place, she loses a ton of credibility when this story comes out. I would imagine you probably agree with that.
Yeah, look, to an extent, it's just hypocritical. Usually the loudest proponents of some of these social causes are the biggest hypocrites, and this is just another example of it, in my opinion. I think there are a lot of good people in those causes that are doing the right thing, but I think a majority are doing it for the wrong reasons. They're doing it for social clout. They're doing it because it's a cool thing to do, and they're hypocrites at the end of the day. And she's labeled me with similar words. That she, doesn't surprise me that she's used that wordage around, that the Australian team was racist by not picking XYZ. So far as she said an Indigenous Australian had fake tan on, which was very, very, not a very, very good thing to say. So the interesting thing is she continues to get a pass for it for the most part. I mean, it hasn't really been a huge issue over there in the US. She's still at the forefront of social causes and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not for cancelling people on either side of politics, whatever your views are. I'm not for cancelling people, but considering that, people, there's people that have done much less that have had their lives absolutely destroyed. She seems to get a pass because I think she's on the right side of politics.
Yeah, well, I'm on your side. I don't think she deserves a pass at all. I think her behavior is absolutely despicable. I'm on your side, and it's just disgusting. So with that being said, I guess it's a two-part question. Number one, if you were in a room with Liz Cambage and you had an opportunity to speak with her, what would you say? And do you believe that the WNBA should do something about this and they should suspend her? I guess that's my two-part question to you.
I think it's too far gone for the WNBA. I don't think they're going to do anything. Judging by that, they haven't done anything to date, and it's a year-old investigation, so they're probably just going to, sweep it under the rug and just kind of ignore it. But it goes to say, if this was an NBA athlete or a WNBA international player from Russia, or Russia's probably a bad example today, but you know what I mean, from overseas, and made those comments, there'd be big problems, I think. But she seems to get a pass because, like I said, she's on the right side of politics and she's for all the causes. So there's that. What would I say to her? I mean, like I said earlier, everyone makes mistakes. She's made more than a few. I've made mistakes in my life, not to the extent of her, what she's done, but just own it and get on with it. You're an adult. Like, stop acting like a child and blaming it on everybody else and the coach and the federation and mental health. Just, hey, I got heated at that time. I said some stupid things. I'm going to get on with my life. I deserve my punishment and move on. But, even with the investigation coming out, you had, Nigerian players are, they didn't use their name, but I know the journalist personally that did that article. He went deep dive for 12 months and did a lot of great work to find out all this. He has Nigerians on record relaying the comments that she made, and he obviously has gone public with that, and the comments are there for everyone to read. She still doubled down and denied it. And said that it's which is just ridiculous. Just own it. It is what it is. It is a year old, as she says. Own it. You messed up and get on with life. And just I think, the thing is, she's a fantastic basketball player. She's a great basketball player. She's probably the best Australian player right now in the female game in the world. It's just disappointing that all this stuff really, really kind of tarnishes, what her strength is, and that's playing basketball.
Agree, and I think you hit the nail on the head there, where she didn't really own it. She didn't really admit what she said, and basically calling some of these Team Nigerian players liars. I thought that was horrible. If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Andrew Bogut. He's an NBA champion, played in the NBA for many, many seasons, won an NBA championship. Andrew, I have to bring up this topic, which is Ben Simmons. I know you haven't always seen eye to eye with Ben. I don't know what's going on with him as far as his professional basketball career is concerned. What do you make of this whole Ben Simmons situation, not just with Team Australia, but in the NBA as well? I mean, he's taken a lot of criticism, and I think rightfully so. What are your thoughts on him right now?
Yeah, I wouldn't say we don't see eye to eye. We haven't even really, been around each other too much, to be quite honest with you. He's never been involved in the national team as far as I've been involved. He played one one series when he was younger and with the junior level, and that was it. So he's yet to play a game for the senior men's team. So haven't had a whole lot to do with him as far as playing, but there were some stuff that, you know, he was going to play, wasn't going to play. He's 1 foot in, 1 foot out for probably the last 2 or 3 campaigns we've had in the Olympics and the World Cup. Look, he's at a crossroad in his career. I think he has a lot to prove coming up to this season, and no one wants to see him go through what he went through, you know, with kind of leaving Philly and the way it ended. And his confidence is obviously shot, and he's got to spend an off season in the gym. And I think most importantly, he needs to spend an off season, you know, with a sports psych. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I think all of us go through these times where maybe there's self-doubt, maybe our confidence is down. I've been through it. Everyone's been through it. Even the best players in the world go through it. As much as some of them don't talk about it, they do. I think just chatting to a sports psych and trying to clear his head and have some tools for when he is 0 for 5 from the free throw line. What are the tools you use to refocus on what's the bigger picture, what's the important thing? So, you know, as bad as he shoots the ball at times, he does so many wonderful things on the basketball court that affect the game. So I think, you know, I just hope he spends this off season getting his mind right, and there's nothing more I'd like to see than him coming back for Brooklyn and having a dominant performance again next season. But yeah, there is some baggage there, and I think he has a lot of distractions in his group and people that probably aren't the best advisors within his agency and his group that just aren't advising him well.
I agree with you 100%. Let's talk about some positives. And of course, you know better than anybody how good Steph Curry is. And you played with just about all of these guys, almost all of them really, starters anyway, that are on this Golden State Warriors team. Let's start with Klay Thompson. You struggled towards the end of your career to no fault of your own with injuries. You know what Klay Thompson has gone through. What do you make of this comeback for him, and what do you think it would mean for him to win this NBA championship after the injury that he had to go through last year?
Yeah, it's obviously huge. It's been spoken about at length, I think, even in the national media now. And I think, you know, his journey of coming off that knee injury and then hurting his Achilles. I mean, it's a tough road. I mean, he essentially didn't play basketball for 2 years. So, and he's kind of worked his way back in the lineup. And he's a key part of what they do. He hasn't had the best playoffs to his standards, but he's contributing in different ways now. And I think he's starting to understand that even if his shot's not falling, he can still contribute in so many different ways. And I thought his defense has gotten better and better throughout the finals. Every game, it seems like he's starting to figure it out. And he's just a great human being. Like you love to see a guy like that bounce back against all the odds and come back and play an influential role. So sure. I've enjoyed his journey. I think he's a great soul and a great person, great heart. And I think most of his teammates would say the same thing.
Andrew, you've played against and you played with some phenomenal players in your career. Let's talk about Steph Curry. A lot of people say, and I tend to agree, probably the best shooter in the history of the game. What is it like being on the floor with Steph Curry, just from a leadership perspective, making other teammates better? And do you even still, to this very day, kind of like roll your eyes and say, God, this guy's unbelievable when he's making these 40-footers constantly? I mean, it's incredible. I mean, as someone who played with Steph Curry, what is it like for you these days as a retired player watching him to this day?
Oh, it's a joy to watch. It's a joy to watch as a fan. It's a joy to watch when you're on the floor with him. You know, you get caught in awe even playing with him at times. So look, my whole role and philosophy and mindset playing with Steph was if I can just get a decent screen on his man, even just a small little bit of contact, I knew, you know, if he gets an inch of room, it's going up. And when he's in those moods like he was in game four.
Yeah.
It's fantastic to watch. And it's just, you know, you're in awe with some of the stuff that he does. And he's changed the game forever, in my opinion. I think he's a pioneer of changing the way the game's played. He's changed the way the game's spaced. And even when he's having bad shooting nights like he did in game 5, no one's going to wait till he makes one to you know, readjust their defense. Their defense stays up and in, even when he's 0 for 5, 0 for 6, 0 for 7 from 3. And it then creates a lot more space for your Draymond Greens, your Klay Thompsons, your Andrew Wiggins. So invaluable guy, and another guy like Klay that's just, you know, an awesome human being and great person to have. So, you know, the Warriors, for the most part, their two superstars are great people, and it just does not surprise me the longevity they've had, you know, going to the finals and being successful because they have good people.
So, I love these videos of Steph as he's walking into the locker room, Andrew, and he's taking these like 60-foot shots as he's walking into the locker room, and occasionally he'll make him and oohs and ahs from the fans. I'm wondering, do you have any stories like that from practice? Maybe something that the public doesn't know, because it seems like he just loves the game so much and he has so much fun playing basketball. What are the types of things, if any, that he would do like in practice that maybe the everyday fan doesn't know about?
Yeah, it's much of what you see. Like, he's a trick shot specialist for sure. He's just one of those guys that just has, don't get me wrong, and people will take this maybe the wrong way, but he puts a lot of work and effort into what he does. Like, he's putting a lot of time and hours into the gym for his craft, right? But he's also one of those guys that just has it. He has that hand-eye coordination down pat, and it could be as easy as picking up a dart for the first time, and throwing it at a dartboard, and he's never done it before. The first couple, he'll kind of be all over the place, and then he figures it out quickly. Like, he's one of those guys that just has that hand-eye. It could be with anything. It could be bowling. It could be, hacky sack. It could be whatever, right? And he's just one of those guys that has it. So I've seen all kinds of stuff, him kicking balls in, him shooting hook shots from half court. Like, most of the stuff you see pre-game, he does on a daily basis, and he just has it. He just has it, man. And then you mix in having it with the time and effort into his craft, you get the result.
Yeah. Who would you say in your career was your least favorite player to play against? A guy that you would say to yourself, Andrew, oh no, I got to defend this guy. Oh geez, I don't want to play against that guy. Like, did you have that one guy in your career that you just dreaded playing against?
I had numerous guys. I mean, Ben Wallace was tough just defensively. It was back in Milwaukee when I was kind of the number one, number two option, and then you're lining up against Ben Wallace guarding you in the post. He was just so physical, so strong, just knew how to play from a defensive standpoint. For me, a guy I struggled to guard was Yao Ming. He was, 7'5", 7'6",
right?
but with the touch of a shooting guard, So I had some games where, I played fantastic defense on Yao Ming, push him off the block out of the paint, contest the jumper, and he'd just shoot a fadeaway over you, and there was nothing you could do to even get within his eyesight contest wise, and just he got hot. I still remember one game in Houston, he got hot and was just hitting fadeaway after fadeaway, and it's like, what do you do at that point, So he was a frustrating guy. I think Kevin Durant's not a guy that I guarded, but Kevin Durant's a frustrating one because he's essentially 7 foot tall, so whatever you do defensively, when he's hot and in one of those moods, you can double, triple, quadruple team him. He's just so long and athletic and can just shoot over anyone. So those guys are probably a good mix there.
Yeah. If you're just joining us, he is Andrew Bogut. By the way, we're going to talk a little bit about Road Bogues. It's an awesome podcast. I've had a chance to listen to it. We'll get into that. A couple more quick questions for you, Andrew, and we really appreciate your time. I have to ask you, with the career that you've had and the knowledge you have of the game, I'm sure you've been asked this question before. Who are your top 5 NBA basketball players of all time? Andrew, I've always wanted to ask you that question. Who are your top 5?
Oh, this is you're setting me up for failure here because you can never get these ones right. You can never look. It's circumstantial. There's different eras. I'm biased to probably the 90s and the 2000s because that's when I grew up. So look, MJ's in there. LeBron's going to be in there. Kobe. Then you got. It's top 5 is pretty much impossible for me. You got Shaq, you got Kareem, you got Wilt.
Yeah.
Who am I forgetting? I mean, I'm probably forgetting someone along the line. But I mean, the better question for me is Steph Curry top 10 yet? That's one that I discussed on the latest episode of the podcast. My co-host Mike Procopio, and I made a point saying after Game 4, I think he's top 10 now, and Mike made a great point. I agree, he's a fantastic player, but then who are you taking out of the top 10? And that's a separate conversation. So these debates are so hard to have. There's never a right way or a wrong way. They're good chats to have, but when you go top 10 as well, then you're including Hakeem and Tim Duncan and some of these guys. Someone's getting screwed out of those conversations. So look, I think MJ is still, in my opinion, I still have him as the best of all time. And I'm probably biased because I was 10, 11, 12, 13 years old when he was at his peak, and that was the pinnacle of basketball for me. And I'm probably biased because it brought back great memories of childhood and teenage years. Mm-hmm. But I can understand how people might say LeBron, or some people even, have Kareem up there. He probably doesn't get in the conversation as much, but, all-time leading scorer is probably should be debated a little bit more. But I think MJ for me is still the best.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that. And by the way, you mentioned game four, the last 5 minutes of game four, Steph Curry completely took over that game. And I think it was one of those moments. He's got plenty of moments in his career, but he single-handedly, for the most part, took over game four, would not allow his team to go down 3-1. And I think ultimately they're going to win the NBA championship. And I think we look to those 5 minutes of what Steph was able to do. Listen, I know Clay hit some big shots. Draymond was great on D, but Steph just took over that game. I have to ask you this. This is a kind of a fun question. You were never known much of a trash talker. Who was like the one guy or maybe a couple guys that you played against? They just said a lot of weird things on the court, and they were probably the biggest trash talkers that you had to play against. I'm just curious.
Probably Rasheed Wallace. I mean, he talked to anyone. He tried to get in your head, and as a young fella coming out of college, you're kind of like, whoa, this guy's like pretty intense. KG was up there. But I enjoyed, those kind of guys, especially KG. I knew he'd try to cheap shot. He'd try to get in your head. He'd try to mess with you. And he's a guy that if you push back, he'll kind of leave you alone. But if you don't push back and he knows he can do it, he's going to continue to do it. So I got in some really big scuffles with him. Some of them you can find on YouTube numerous times throughout my career, and I enjoyed that. So those two guys probably come to mind the most.
Yeah, those names definitely make sense to me. Hey, Andrew, before I let you go, I want you to talk a little bit more about your podcast because I love it. I think it's great. Road Bogues is what it's called. You guys really get in the depths and have some great conversations. Talk to me a little bit more about your podcast, why you got it started, how long you've been doing it, and how people can follow it.
Yeah, it's been going for just a little over a year. I kind of do a bunch of different stuff. So we have the mainstays weekly basketball series, which drops every Monday. We just chat all things basketball. Right now, finals, obviously. My co-host worked for Kobe Bryant for a number of years as his personal film coach and kind of trainer. He was involved with the Dallas Mavericks. He's been involved with numerous basketball academies in the past. So really, really knowledgeable guy. He's been around the league for 20, 30 years. And, we just talk shit basically about the game and just try to keep it lighthearted. He swears a lot, so it can be it's not PG rated at times. And then I have a bunch of other stuff I do. With the podcast. I have a series that talks mainly about cars. I have a series that talks about my journey and kind of my autobiography via podcast as per se. And just I just like to put my thoughts out there on different things, sometimes controversial, sometimes not. And I enjoy discussing the game. I enjoy discussing basketball and breaking down, different things like, analytics of it. How important is this? Why is this guy doing this? And trying to give a behind the scenes kind of thought process for fans that probably miss things that people that have been in the know.
Yeah. No, I love it. You do a fantastic job. I love the podcast. Last question. Do you believe the Golden State Warriors win this series? And if they do they win it in 6 or do they win it in 7?
I picked Golden State 4-2 before this series. I think it's going to go 7 though. I really do. I think Boston do a fantastic job of bouncing back from tough losses, and I think it's going to go 7. But I still think Golden State will win it. But hopefully I'm right at the 4-2. But I think this has all the makings of a 7-game series. There's just been wild swings game to game. I mean, I don't think Golden State played that well in game 4, to be honest with you. Game 5. I don't think they played that well. I think Boston just played poorly. Besides that third quarter, which was an elite quarter for the Boston Celtics, the other 3 quarters were absolutely horrific. And I think Golden State still has more. So I don't see them losing this series. And I'm just happy that we've got a close final series. It's been exciting. I think this season and last season with Milwaukee, Phoenix have really been good. I think before that we had a lot of kind of one-sided NBA finals.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the parity in the NBA now is probably as good as it's been in quite some time. Andrew, you're always a class act. Love your podcast. You're a legend, certainly not just in Australia, but here in this country as well. Always generous with your time, and I appreciate you taking the time to join us. Andrew Bogut, thank you so much.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
All right. Appreciate that. Hey, Andrew, thanks, man. I appreciate your time, my friend.